and welcome. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce our special guest, Cathy Rodriguez, a true veteran in the world of education. With more than 2 decades of shaping minds, Cathy's journey began in the heart of New York City until she moved to California, where she has been inspiring students in grades 6 through 8 in both English and Spanish language arts. Cathy has been in roles like department chair, activities coordinator, and even co-founding a task force dedicated to English language learners. She is now an assistant principal of a dual immersion elementary school. So let's dive into a conversation with the woman who's truly at the heart of education. Welcome, Cathy.
Does traditional education deliver or fall short in educating and nurturing children? Introducing Aligned Learning Revolution, the show that confronts conventional norms and presents dynamic alternatives to transform education. Host Kohila Sivas tackles the foundational issues within classroom walls and advocates for holistic learning opportunities. It's time to reveal the strength of the innovative, holistic neurogrowth learning approach that goes beyond conventional teaching or tutoring methods, assuring every learner of a stress-free learning journey to unlock their fullest potential. Now, join Kohila Sivas.
Hi, Cathy. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Hi, Kohila. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, Cathy, you are a teacher. How long have you been teaching for?
I was in the classroom for 23 years, and then I moved into the administrative side. I am currently an assistant principal. This is my second year as an assistant principal. I recognize that I no longer wanted to be in the classroom. Just from after COVID, I saw just a lot of changes in the students and in the school system, and I felt that I could best serve as an administrator. I sincerely believe that teachers have the most important and the hardest job at any school site. And I felt that I could be my best at supporting teachers in what they were doing to serve our students and educate our students. So
I really appreciate what you just said. Really, really resonates with me that they have the hardest job and you want to be helpful for them. Because many times I hear, Cathy, is that these teachers are not getting the help from the administrators.
And I felt that way myself many times. And I many times wanted the administrator just sometimes to just listen or to just take a little something off my plate. When I was teaching in the classroom, I had anywhere from 150 to 180 students. I taught in middle school, and I sometimes just needed a student removed from my classroom for 5 minutes at least, just to be able to refocus myself a little bit and to give that student a break as well. And I feel that as an administrator, if a teacher tells me I need a break, I will do whatever they need, whether it's they need to run to the restroom, because our bodies don't always stick to the schedules that we have to follow for school. And sometimes it's, and especially in elementary school, those teachers are with the students all day. And if they need just a 5-10 minute break from a student to allow that student a moment to reset themselves and refocus, and the teacher and even the class as a whole to give them a break from whatever's going on with that student, I think it's better all around. And I feel that that's my job, whether it's sometimes to take that angry phone call from that parent that's upset at what the teacher said. And many times the parent just wants to be heard the same way the teacher just wants to be heard. And that it is on the admin's radar for what are we going to do about this student. It's validating their feelings as well and saying, yeah, I see the same thing in the student, and let's try this, let's work together. I feel that my job as an admin is to really support the teachers, and I don't believe that I know it all. But I'm definitely willing to work with teachers, and they certainly know their students better than I do. They're with them all day. So if a teacher tells me this is what I'm seeing, now I need to see how I can support that teacher to help that student, or how can I support that student, perhaps that family, so that way the student gets those services and help that they need.
Yes. And you are a better administrator than many, because I hear a lot of stories about, administrators are not helping the teachers, sometimes throwing the teachers under the bus. But I think you have a compassionate side because you were a teacher before.
And I think I will always consider myself a teacher first. Having been in the classroom for 23 years, I will not ever be an administrator for that long because I hope to retire before that. But I'm always a teacher first. And I think, what would I want in this situation? And sometimes, if it's a teacher that doesn't know certain techniques or strategies, then I see it as like, well, let me help them. You don't know what you don't know sometimes. And so it could be a simple little fix, and it makes a difference. And if I can walk alongside that teacher to help them learn that strategy, and when I go into classrooms, I let teachers know that I'm not observing them, and I'm sincerely not observing them. I'm observing a student. I'm observing what's going on with the kids. I guess the part that I am observing is what's the community that the teacher has built in that classroom. Because whether we are intentional about it or not, teachers do create a community and a culture in their own classroom. And so I'm observing that piece of it, not necessarily that one student or the teacher. Like, the lesson can change. Teachers have those days and those lessons that they're on it. They're just doing an amazing job. And then they have those days that, it's not their best day. They're off, maybe they're sick. Maybe there's something going on at home. Maybe something is going on with the students and it's a little bit off, or maybe it's the day before winter break or anything like that. And the kids are a little squirrely. So I'm definitely there to gauge, I guess, the vibe in the classroom. And is it a conducive environment for learning, even if it's not the teacher's best day?
Yes, absolutely. And how do you actually help a teacher who might be offended? Because observation is a huge part of a teacher's day-to-day, operation, right? And a lot of the time, it's like, if you give a feedback, how do you give it constructive? It's not a negative, so they don't take it, because if they're already feeling like they're not doing a job, and if they're, already feeling not good, and you give them a result, now they're maybe not happy with you as an administrator. What happens?
I always try to approach it, again, thinking of how I would feel, and I have had observations that I didn't get great feedback on because of whatever was going on that day. I always approach it from there's more good that goes on than not.
Yes.
And so I always focus on, like, this is what I saw that was just wonderful. This was, I saw that this student was really on task. I saw that you put time and effort into preparing this lesson. You were knowledgeable about this. And if there was any formula to it, I'm always like 75% positives and strengths and 25% areas of growth, right? I do believe that we could always grow. There's always room for improvement, right? The best of the best teachers, there's always a little tweak that they can make. And I always go with that. Like, what are the little things? I don't ever want to overwhelm a teacher with, like, here's a laundry list of things that you need to work on. I do, if there is a real concern that I have, I would probably pick out the top 2 or 3 things. And that would also include providing support. So at the school sites that I have been at, we've had instructional coaches before. And so part of it is putting them in touch with the instructional coach and me reaching out to that instructional coach. I know that lessens the teacher's stress to some of it. They're not now being observed by an admin. they're working with another teacher who is going to support them. And I'll let that teacher know if I have concerns, like I will be walking through and I will be checking. I just want to see that you're making those changes, that you're implementing that. And it's not like I caught you, ooh, you were off, but I want that more informal, just kind of walk through of, and I know it's a little unfair to kind of walk through for 2 or 3 minutes. And I would never base somebody's observation on, 2 or 3 minutes. But I do believe that 2 or 3 minutes here, 2 or 3 minutes there, at different times of the day, it also provides a bit of a snapshot. So, and sometimes, that so far has worked. There are times I walk in and students are working independently. Other times it's teacher is in full, teaching mode. Other times students are working in partners. They're transitioning from one subject to another. And I want to be able to get a feel for that. And again, going back to the community and the culture that the teacher has created in that classroom.
Absolutely. So if a teacher is listening to us right now, what would be the best advice you can give them to address to admins who are not this sensitive? Because some admins are different than others, right? Everyone. And I think a lot of the time, sometimes as humans, we also play on our egos, like our egos become bigger than our mission, right? And we can get trapped in that. And teachers need the support right now because the classroom, we're going to talk about that in a bit, how hard it is in the classroom. So how can they, what advice can you give them to manage?
I always go with the approach of you can't take things personally. That parent that is just, whether as an admin or as a teacher, that parent that's screaming at you, you don't know what else is going on in that parent's life, And so part of it is you can't take it personally, but I also believe that most teachers are doing the best they can. I think it's important to be reflective though, and realize one's own strengths and one's own areas of growth, and then actively try to do something about growing in that area. So I know that as a beginning teacher, my area of weakness was classroom management. It was a challenge for me to manage my 13 and 14-year-old students. And I will say that it took like a good 4 or 5 years to even get to a point that I felt was somewhat manageable. Like, okay, I'm feeling like I'm making a difference. But that happened because I did have supportive admin that would let me out of my class and would cover my class for 15, 20 minutes so I can go observe another teacher that had really solid classroom management. I did read books. I did watch videos. And so it was me reflecting on what I needed, but also me asking for that help. And so I think that as a teacher, if an admin, I know we have the other extreme, right? The admin that they think they're God. Basically, it's that ego. That's a different challenge, but I think you can't ever take it personally. I know that admin, we have our own challenges. We have our own bosses above us who are even more removed from the classroom. I don't see any harm in a teacher ever asking for help. And whether it's from another teacher or if they feel comfortable seeking help from admin, if there's an instructional coach available, whether it's at the school side or the district level, asking for that type of help as well. I think being reflective goes a long way. Like, this is what I'm good at, and developing that, but also what do I need to grow in to be better still? And then what steps can I take to improve in that? And it always comes down to relationship with admin. I mean, they don't need to be your best friend, but I think having a professional, respectful relationship goes a long way.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about, you said earlier when we started, there's a big shift, since COVID, and students' behaviors are different. So what are the shift in your opinion? What is happening?
When COVID started, I was still in the classroom. And so we started that year traditionally, August, my eighth graders at the time, August through February, August until March 13th, when we were sent home, it had been a regular school year. My students in eighth grade were excited about the end of the year coming up. They were going to have their dance, their eighth grade celebration and trip. And they were very excited about that. And all of a sudden, March 13th, it was take everything home. And it was students, it was teachers also. Take everything home, take your books and teachers' editions. We don't know when we're coming back. And that was frightening in many ways. And at the time, I taught at a Title I school. And I saw students that were normally very engaged to, I didn't hear from them again. And I saw students that were lively, that wouldn't check in to class at all, and maybe submitted a couple of assignments. But these were students that had been very engaged in the classroom. Some of those students, when I had them in seventh grade, I also had them again in eighth grade. And I saw that change continue into eighth grade. 13 and 14-year-olds are very vulnerable in many ways, even though they try to behave like they're not, but they are very vulnerable. And when I saw them come back that following year, and it was like a hybrid model. So we started out the year entirely online. And then throughout the course of the school year, eventually we were all back together wearing masks. But I saw students, just their behaviors became very withdrawn. They were not as willing to engage and talk, or those little activities like a think, pair, share. All of a sudden, it was like the kids would just sit there and stare at each other, where normally they couldn't wait to start talking to each other. And then the following year, when we came back, we were still with masks, but everybody was back. We really saw a rise in behaviors at that point. And it went from the extreme of being withdrawn to, I saw students, we had students at school that were using drugs at school, and I'm still talking about a middle school, so 6th, 7th, and 8th graders drinking at school. And it's like, it just went from I'm being completely withdrawn to I'm going to the other extreme, and I'm drinking, I'm doing drugs, I'm acting out in ways that in my 20 years at that point of teaching, I had not seen that many students behave in that way. Having moved now into the admin side of it, and I'm at a K-6 school, I see a lot. Let me rephrase this. The 4th graders now would have been in kindergarten when COVID happened. And there's behaviors in 4th and 5th graders and in 6th graders that we didn't see before. Meaning that there's students that are still struggling to learn how to read in 5th and 6th grade because of COVID. They didn't get those lessons on phonemic awareness and phonics and just that science of reading, right? That fluency. They didn't get that foundation. And we're seeing that struggle as far as behaviors. We're seeing lots of, I'm going to call them conduct disorders because they're too little to be diagnosed with anything else. Just a lot of children not knowing how to interact with each other in inappropriate ways. So I see a lot more aggression in the little ones than previously. I see a lot more, I'm hesitant to call it bullying, but it is a level of meanness that
the kindness is not there, right? The kindness has.
Right. The
diminished.
kindness isn't there, where before you can tell a student like that wasn't very kind of you, that wasn't very nice. And they would be like, oh yeah. Now they're like, yep,
Mm,
too bad.
it's attitude, different
Mhm.
attitude.
So
So what do you as a professional think is contributing it? Of course, the masking, the COVID isolation, of course, of those. But what else happened, do you think, like significantly? What are they doing in order to be angry? And I know the kids are angry
mhm.
because I hear from teachers who are in kindergarten right now or grade one, special grade one students are very angry.
I think some of it is that so much of our instruction has gone online now. I think that instead of coming off of the computers and off the iPads and the Chromebooks, so much of the instruction now requires the students to be on the computer. And I certainly am not a neurologist. I don't know anything about that. But I know that students spending that much time on technology every day, it can't be good for their little brains. It's just not. And there's no way that a teacher can really compete with that. Right. So they're filling out a game, or they're doing a game on the computer, and it automatically gives them feedback. It was a right
Yes.
answer, it was a wrong answer, whatever. It's disguised as a game, but they're practicing math or, reading. And all of a sudden, to take them off of that, and then let's do this pen and paper. Now you have to sit and listen. They haven't developed that type of endurance, I guess, to be able to focus long enough to.
And it's not fast enough
It's not
because
fast enough. It still requires time for them to write something out instead of hitting a button. Those motor skills aren't there. And it's frustrating to them. And especially the little ones don't have the words yet to be able to say, this is frustrating to me, or I don't like this. And they're acting out in that way. I think it's that anger because they're not getting that immediate feedback.
yeah. And that's how they're communicating
Yes.
now. It's
By
through
act-
anger, behaviors. So should the teachers and should the districts are they seeing this?
They are seeing it. I will say that I think that we are ridiculously understaffed as far as, and I'm hesitant to use special ed because not everybody is special ed, but I think that the approach to behaviors needs to change. I think that a lot of times.
This is not behavior. I mean, this is not special ed. This
No,
is
this is
through
not right.
yeah.
But I think that a lot
It's a
of.
society problem. This is a societal problem now.
Mhm. I absolutely agree. But I also think that we're quick to label students as special
Yeah.
ed. And so that's why I'm saying that we are understaffed in that sense. I definitely think that schools need more counselors. And that there needs to be a very intentional focus on that social emotional well-being. And even being able to say, like, okay, we're all using the same approach. And it's going to work for most kids, if you have that expectation of, yes, we're going to be kind, and no, this is not acceptable. And it's not going to reach other kids. And those are the kids that we really need to focus on, because those are the kids that will take up most of the class time, acting out in some way. I think that there needs to be a real focus on that social emotional piece, because learning can't happen if you don't have a relationship with that student on some level. So,
And if they're not regulated, if they don't know how to regulate themselves, and then they're not in the state to learn. So could teachers get training on these?
I think they should. I think they should definitely receive training, and training on that general social emotional piece. And in an ideal situation, you would have counselors also working with teachers and maybe coming into classrooms and doing lessons with the class. So it's not just entirely on the teacher's shoulders. Maybe the teacher does a foundational type of lesson, and then the counselor comes in and builds on that. And ideally, that would address a good chunk of the students. Whether it's like, let's use some deep breathing techniques when somebody upsets us, or maybe let's learn to walk away, or put ourselves in timeout, right? Not because somebody puts you there, but because I need a few minutes aside. I think that would be helpful. And then having, those counselors on campus that can really address and intervene those students who have those more, those heightened behavior problems. I think one of the schools I was at, there were some teachers that had calming corners. And I will admit that I was skeptical about it at first, because I was like, well, kids are just going to take advantage of this. And the teachers I saw using it were very intentional. So they had a little timer there, and the student can set the timer. And it was just 5 minutes max, and they had to go back to their seats then. And if after those 5 minutes they were not well enough, that particular teacher had, I don't want to say trained, but yeah, she had trained the students to say, I need to talk to you outside. And that worked very well. And that was in a third grade classroom. I'm not saying it was perfect, but it did address most of the students' needs at that point. So,
yeah, teachers need training, support, and having 26 kids in grade 1, or 20, 30, 20, 25, and they all have these social emotional issues.
There's more than 25, 26. I mean,
What's your class size?
The school I'm at right now, they have like 28 kindergartners in a class. The other school I was at before had 31, 32 kindergartners in a classroom, which is
one teacher. One
teacher.
See, that scares me. Like, even because I'm like, they're just 6 years old. What if I lose some of them? I can't see all of them at one point, because even with outside peripheral view, I can't see them all.
There's no way. I know. I agree. They're scary to have that many little ones in there. And I think it's really important in that situation then to teach them how to regulate themselves, right? And teach them those skills. That third grade teacher that I was talking about, she had, I want to say 29 students in her class, but they're 29 little bodies that are like 7, 8 years old. And many of them can't verbalize yet. Like, I'm upset. They have the words, but recognizing those feelings in themselves, like, okay, I'm frustrated because math is hard, or reading is hard, or
they can label it. They can kind of put those feelings with what's happening in their body together. There's the comprehension, but that's not there.
And even sometimes going back to like the friendships, right? So they got angry with their friend, or their friend got angry at them, and now they're bringing that back to class with them. This might have happened at recess, and now they're bringing that back to the classroom with them, and they're expected to now do math, whether it's a math game on the computer, or, do a lesson together as a whole class, but they're still thinking about what happened at recess, or even in some situations, what happened in the morning with mom or dad, if it's a much bigger situation, and helping them just be able to focus on learning when their mind isn't really there.
Yeah. If parents are listening to us right now, what are some of the things parents can do? Because, I have a book out called Cracking the Parenting Codes. I just launched it a week ago. I am launching this. Thank you. I'm launching this because parents need help, right? Because they need lots of help, because parenting has changed over the year. What parents are going through It's different than what our parents went through to raise us too. It's different. The whole world is different for them.
Mhm.
So how can they help? Like if a parent is listening and they have a grade 1 student at their house, and what do you have? What advice you have for them?
I would say the biggest thing for any student is to have that stability and routine. So kids don't always like it, but they do really want stability. They really want a routine. They want to know, okay, I'm going to come home and this is what's going to happen, whatever that may be. So maybe after school, they go to an after school childcare program and somebody's picking them up, mom or dad or grandparent or whoever it may be, and they're going to go home and they have a routine, whether it's, okay, you're going to have a snack and then work on your homework for a little bit, and then, whatever your nightly routine is. I think that is huge to a child, just to have stability and a routine. Parents don't need to have a master's degree in math or anything like that, but just checking on their students, taking an interest, like, oh, what'd you learn today? How was school? And I know that as they get older, they're less likely to share. They'll be like, oh, fine, good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just knowing, the students just knowing that their parents are asking and taking a real genuine interest in what they're learning and what they're doing. And sometimes you have to really draw it out of them. And maybe it means like kind of peeking over their shoulder and seeing what homework they're working on and asking them about it. I think anytime you can engage your child, it's good, right? And we should engage them not just in negative ways, but in positive ways. And if it means that you have to do a quick Google search to find out about the moons of some planet because that's what they're learning about, then so be it. I think stability, having routines, and just being engaged in what they're interested in and what they're learning at school is important.
But earlier we talked about how students are acting as they're detached, isolated, this new behavior because of COVID, and the masking kind of could have done it too, because, they haven't seen people smile. Smile is international language for,
Right.
pleasant behavior, right? When you're smiling, but when you go under a mask, you can be, doing whatever motion. I can't tell. As I look at your eyes a little bit, I can tell, right? So we have kind of trained these little people, in this way with the mask.
Mhm.
Do you think that's affecting them at home too? Or is it just at school?
No, I think certainly at home as well. I think that in my personal experience, when we were at home during COVID, my stepdaughter was up in her room. She was in high school at the time, and she was up in her room doing her work for hours. And I was downstairs in the living room, kind of kitchen area, teaching and working also. And we didn't really see each other either. We were in the same house, but we didn't see each other. And it probably was like a good month or two before it was like, what are we doing? Like, we used to regularly come home and eat together, right? And maybe that wasn't every night, depending on her schedule or my schedule. My wife's schedule didn't always allow it, but it was something that happened a few times a week. And it wasn't like a long leisurely dinner, but we had that interaction of maybe cooking together or preparing part of our meal together. And I think that with COVID, it became like very insular. Everybody kind of just went to their corner and we became passing ships, right? And I think that was very common in a lot of homes. When I've spoken with my friends, it was like, yeah, you know what? Like all of a sudden I was just here's your food, and everybody serve yourself and just go to your room and eat.
And also, I think people were saying, I heard from some people too, like kids went and ate at the time they're not, because it's all accessible. You're at home, because at school, you don't have your pantry, right? You got to wait until you go home to access all these food, but they were available, and then they already ate. And then then when it comes to dinner time, lunchtime, you're not really going to be hungry because you probably ate something already. So that all started skipping, and the family time started not happening. So, and then staying. The one thing we did at our house, we have kids too at that time, they're older now. My son is 17. And we never let them stay in their room to do their work. Like we had them out. I mean, I guess if you don't have a bigger space, then they will be beside each other. But we kind of keep the computers and stuff outside of their room. Like I have this, I've always said it, I've done a couple of summits and during the COVID time. I say, like, for me, it doesn't sit well when they have the computer or phone in their home, because it's almost like letting a stranger in their room.
Yes.
It's what it feels like for me. Somebody's in there that I don't know who can do what to them. Just like opening the door, letting the whole world into their room.
I have said something similar to parents when, they're handing their 7-8-year-olds a phone, and it's like you've given millions of strangers access to your child because, like you said, you've let the stranger into your child's room, basically. And I agree with you. Under normal circumstances, our daughter prior to that would have been working in the living room. But because she had a class going on and happened to be teaching a class, it was our only solution. Like, she stays upstairs in her room and I'm working downstairs.
We took our own isolations. Yes,
right.
For sure.
And we had to make it work. And I think that happened with a lot of families.
Yes. I mean, can you imagine if you were living closer, like if you were 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartments, then you're really close to each other too, right? And if you got to isolate yourself, then
and I was teaching at that time, and many of our students, while they were, I couldn't tell if they were really there because their screens were blank. And as much as I insisted, like, I want to be able to see you for a few minutes of class at least each time, the peaks that I got into their family life was, it was very interesting. Sometimes it's like there was all this stuff going on behind them, which was super distracting. It was loud. And even if they might have had AirPods or earbuds or whatever on, I would have been terribly distracted. I was distracted by just seeing what was going on behind them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And I think that that's kind of a leftover piece of COVID, is that it's that constant interaction, but you're also alone. Like, you're interacting with people in a way, but you're still isolated.
Like, have you seen, like, even at home, my son brings their friends and then they'll sit on their phone. I'd say to them, I thought you guys came for a visit. If you were going to be on your phone, you should have been at your own house and been on the phone, right? Like, why are you here present? And who are you talking to on the phone? You're right here. All of you are right here.
Exactly. Well, we see that, right? When we go out to dinner to places, right? You see like a table full of people and they're sitting at the same table, but everybody's on their phone.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is called, these guys come together to play or something. Like, they get gathering at home. You would, if they're younger, we call them the play dates or, sleepovers or whatever. And I see them with their phone. I'm like, this is not, they didn't have to be here.
No, you could have done that from your home. Yeah.
And that's how play dates, or I can't call it play dates because my son is 17, he'll kill me. But but that's how the gathering became. It was a phone gathering, not a we're coming together gathering anymore. So that's also changed in many. I'm not sure if the younger kids are doing that, but my son is 17. But when his friends come, and I actually get in there and I tell them, put them away. Otherwise, you guys should have, and jokingly, right? I joke with them. They should have been at your home.
I think that one of the things that I was a little surprised by it. So again, during COVID, it was probably about like 11 o'clock at night one night, and we can hear our daughter talking in her room, and we're okay.
Kids stayed up late too. Yeah,
they stayed up late, but she was on FaceTime with her friends, and they were doing a virtual sleepover.
Oh,
And I have heard of other kids doing that also. And so, especially with our sixth graders, I've heard of virtual sleepovers. So they just have FaceTime open or whatever other option they have for video conferencing. And the phone is just there. And it's just in some way, like you said, this person is in your room with you. Um, and they're connected, but not connected at the same time.
yeah. And also across the screen, even on social media and stuff, people can say rude things because
Oh,
of that because we're not, yes, you said we're connected, but not connected. So I can say stuff because it's through the screen.
and I think that we've seen a rise in that's kind of cyberbullying, where it's
Yeah.
very easy to say something mean to somebody and you don't see that person's reaction. You don't see their facial expression, that it hurts or that it angers them or it's upsetting in some way. So it's super easy to say something
Yeah. And that
mean.
energy, right? Because not only words, but we're all energy being. So if I say mean thing and they react, I can feel the energy is not, I've destroyed their energy. I've upsetted their energy. But if we're not, this is phone. Now we don't have anything traveling through. We can just say whatever. It's easy to
Exactly.
say.
And you don't get that feedback. You don't see, like you said, you destroy that person's energy. And the translation of that into school then is that
Yeah.
somebody comes in wearing a shirt that they were so happy about, and somebody will be like, "That's stupid."
Mm.
And all of a sudden they see that they have hurt that person. And I've seen kids later on start crying. The kid who made the comment, like, that shirt's stupid, because they weren't expecting that other person to be hurt by it. And when I've sat and talked with them, they were like, I didn't think they were going to be hurt by that. I didn't think they were going to react that way. And it comes from not being used to that face-to-face interaction.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're also watching stuff on online space, right? On social medias, lots of social medias. I mean, I'm hearing lots of teachers getting in trouble with kids. They're saying that my teacher did this, and they're taking them to the next level and going and getting their friends to say this is what the teacher did. And sometimes some teachers have cameras. It's not even what they said, but they make a story to elevate. It's because on some of these spaces, like TikTok is one of them. I heard it. I don't really on not there, so I don't really know exactly the whole scenario. But they said that they're putting out videos to kids saying that go do this at school today.
Oh, yeah.
And see what happens, right? Like these pranks, and then it becomes a game, and then that game's become a serious issue, right? So this week alone, I talked to two teachers. They're leaving the profession because they've been told that what you did is wrong, even though they did not do anything wrong. So there's all of this is all happening at the same time too, right?
So I want to say right after COVID, there were TikTok challenges, right? So, and
Yes.
some of it would like destroy a bathroom and
Yes.
public vandalism. And
Yes.
we did have students trying to do that.
Yeah.
Whether it was flooding the bathroom because they kept flushing the toilet or stuffing things into the toilet or into a sink to clog it and overflow it. We did see that, and it's costly for
Yes.
schools to keep repairing those things. Most public schools do have policies on cell phones and not recording during the school day. But like you said, we have had students record teachers without their knowledge, without their consent, and post it on Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok. And you can take anything out of context. You can edit something, and
Yes.
the most harmless thing all of a sudden gets twisted
Yes.
into something else. And all it takes is now one person, one student posting this, and everybody else jumping in and saying something else. And it could have been nothing. It could have been
Yes.
absolutely nothing. It could have been a teacher telling a student, like, all right, go sit down and start your work. But now you create this whole backstory to it. And this is the mean teacher, and you can edit the video and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So many edits you can do, so much you
right.
can do. Yeah. And it's not fair for the teacher. And I always never understood why why does a student need a phone while they're in the classroom?
I agree. I completely agree. We have seen many parents insist, going to the school board, insist that their child be allowed to have an Apple Watch or some kind of smartwatch on them. And I am of the same, I agree. Like, unless there's a medical reason for you to have a smartwatch on you, because I do know that like diabetics and some other students might a smartwatch for medical reasons. And that's completely fine. But I also know that if there was a real concern, the smartwatch isn't going to protect your child.
And but they're in a safe place with the teacher, right? I know sometimes, safety has been in question in some schools because of, some incidences, violence and stuff. Mm-hmm. But this is the safest place for your child. So why like the phone is distracting them, obviously. Even if you put it away, the kids are going to take out, you and me know this, right? They'll take it out and it becomes a game. My teacher's not looking, so I'm going to be on my phone and put it away when she comes. Now we're playing the police game. Catch me if you can't, if you can game. And that's not learning. Mm-hmm. So why do they need a phone? I mean, even if they bring it, why can't we have a locker even for the younger kids? Like if some of them are 10 and they have a phone, right? 9 and they have a phone. For them, they need to learn that, okay, when I come into this class, my duty, my job is this. So my phone goes here, and everybody have maybe a locked place. They just put it away, and then now we're learning. And then when I finish, I can have my phone.
I absolutely agree. That would be wonderful.
A structure.
Exactly. I agree with that 100%. I do know that in the older grades, sometimes, teachers do allow students to use their phone. And
they do like quizzes and stuff. And I was in classes like that, and a lot of the time they're like, it's just fun. I mean, it's just that age, right? It's an age too, right? Mm-hmm. It's like they love to play catch me if you can.
Right. And I think part of it is that if you have a Chromebook, and most kids now, the schools provide Chromebooks or iPads or some other kind of technology, you don't need that phone then, right? Whether it's a game to log into something, like it's very easy to do that same thing with a Chromebook or an iPad. So it's not necessary to have that phone there. And like you said, now you're playing catch me, right? And
it always was like that. For me, it was like that. I walk around, the minute I come, it goes away. And you can see the body, right? Putting it away. And then the minute I leave that area, it's like it comes back out. And then you're like, put it away. And then now you're just saying, put it away, because now they're not doing the work they're supposed to. And then they're going to take homework home. Mm-hmm. They're not going to get the homework done. Now they're falling behind in the classroom as we speak. So, earlier you were saying kids need guidance, right? Kids need structure. I think kids so much, they crave for structure. They actually look for structure.
They think they don't want it, but they do.
No, but internally, their body and everything, us too, right? If we have a structure, we're better off than just doing whatever, right? Because, a lot of the time we don't get to do what we intended to do when we just do it. But if we put a structure together, then you can keep yourself accountable to that structure. And that's a good lesson to teach as we grow, become adults. Right?
And I think that there's something to be said for being able to provide structure to students, but also show them that there's a certain amount of flexibility to it, right?
Of course,
so, the phones put away, absolutely. And this is our time to work on reading. And maybe the reading that you're doing is going to look different than the reading I'm doing, but we're both working on that. And so providing structure for students, with that flexibility and differentiation to give each student what they need to grow,
Absolutely.
and to be successful. And I am a big believer that success looks different for each student.
Of course. Absolutely.
And it's,
That's
I
my that's my whole methodology.
yeah,
I've developed after leaving, I have a coaching methodology. I don't look at any student. Success is different for every single student. And the rate that success comes is different. You
right.
don't measure one against the other. Like it's not about measurement, right? That's why this testing is so cruel in many instances, because we're testing at a level that the child's not ready for.
And a lot of times, you brought up testing. We have so much outside of state testing, just like district testing or school site testing. And a lot of times you see that student that is they're still technically failing, but
Yes.
they grew. To me, it's like, let's say a sixth grade student, they grew from a second grade reading level or math level, and now they're fourth grade. Like that is tremendous growth, but they're still technically failing.
Yes.
And
We
I
don't
think
celebrate that. We don't celebrate that.
we don't celebrate it. I mean,
And that's a failure. That's a failure for that student, because
Mhm.
when you don't celebrate, they're noticing that I've done all this work, but I'm still a failure. So what is the point of doing work?
Right. And I think that's where we lose a lot of our students, where it's, why should I bother to keep trying?
Because I'm failing anyway.
I'm failing anyway. And it doesn't matter. Like I tried, this is the best I could do. And we
But it's
know
not good enough.
Mm-mm. And we know that we have students that walk into our classroom that are just, they're so behind already. And right away as a teacher, you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this kid up to grade level. But if I can make this kid grow 1 or 2 grade levels, that's a success.
That's big success. Huge.
Huge. And it's helping the students see that, like, you know what, maybe you're not at the grade level, you're not reading, you're not performing at the grade level that you're at, but you're way closer. And it's helping students realize that they still need to keep putting in their all. I'm a long distance runner. I run marathons. I will never win marathons. I am not that level of competitive, but I put my best effort into every race I do.
Yeah.
And some races I'm doing great and other ones not so great, but I'm still going out to do my best.
Yes.
I try to have students learn that, like, you know what, you can only do your best, and only you know if you're doing your best. And there are a lot of times that I've had students and I show them, I'm like, you should be proud of this. This is huge growth. Like, what did you do? Can we do this again? And I want students to feel empowered to say, like, well, you know what? I took my time this time, or I reviewed my answers, or I reviewed my notes, or whatever it was. I want them to be able to say, like, I did this and this worked. And so, okay, let's try that again next time.
Yes.
Because I don't want students to feel that it's just like this ambiguous test that is going to decide their life, that is going to determine if they're a good person or not a good person, if they're a bad student or a good student. Because I don't believe the grade tells you if that's a good kid or not.
No.
We don't know what our students.
It measures the curriculum. Tests are measuring the curriculum. It's not measuring the student's capacity. It's measuring what's the curriculum. How much of it do you know?
Right. And how much are you able to comply with what's being taught? And I think that's what a lot of our issues, some of it is that, students are not complying with what the curriculum is requiring of them, what schools are requiring of them. And, realistically, like, there is no perfect K-12 school system.
No, I think it's time for the school system to ask the students, what do you want to study?
Mm-hmm.
What intrigues you? Like, what are you interested in?
Right.
And see what they come up with. They empower the students.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, if you have a store and you have all these merchandise and no one's coming and buying anything, and you're going, why are they not buying? What's going on? What do? We ask the customers. We go to the customers and we ask them, how come you're not buying? What kind of merchandise are you looking for? So I can put it in my storefront. Then I can offer you what you're looking for. So it's about time to ask the students, what do you want to learn?
And I agree with that. I think that our school system needs to start taking that more into consideration.
Yeah.
What do the students want to learn? Maybe they want to learn about soccer, and let's develop
TikTok. They want to make movies. Who knows what they want to do?
Yes.
But ask them.
Ask them. And how can we incorporate that into our curriculum? And then going back to the start of our conversation, though, I also feel that that's a huge burden on teachers, though, to have to every year create these lessons now. Like, oh, this batch of students really want to learn about TikTok. Okay, now I have to become an expert on this. And this batch of students wants to learn about colonizing Mars or whatever. Okay, now I got to learn about that and develop lessons around that. So I think, if we had smaller class sizes, that would certainly address.
And it'll be more student-led too, right? Right. Teacher doesn't have to do all that work. It would be student-led. They would do the research because they're capable. Our students are, with their devices, they are capable. Then sometimes I know how to research stuff on the internet. So they'll do that. They'll put them to work because that's what they want to learn. So let's go look for it. Find out. You use ChatGPT. Find out what it tells you about the moon and whatever you want to learn about, and bring it to me, and we'll have a discussion.
Yes.
And we can see what we can, produce from there, or we can solve world's problems through there. So now it becomes more student-centric and student-led. And those are important to give them some empowerment. Maybe that's how we change this isolated situation, because now they're feeling not part of the process. They're drawing back. How do we push them back into that conversations, right?
And I think with a smaller classroom,
of course,
it allow those students to hide, right? When you have 30-something students in a class, it's very easy to hide in there, right? Like, as long as you're not causing any problems and not drawing any attention to yourself, it's kind of easy to go under the radar. Whereas if you have that smaller class size, as a teacher, now you can make a connection with every student. You can talk to to every student every day. You can get to know what's going on in that student's life. And okay, as a class, we decided that we all want to learn about X. And all right, so let's divide up into groups, and this group is going to research this, and this other group is going to tell us about that. And I think it's easier then to build this curriculum. Every state has its standards. Just make sure you're hitting those. And the rest of it can kind of build itself. But
now we have standards, but kids are exiting the school system without knowing how to read and how to do the simple math. So what's the curriculum? What's the standards doing right now?
Right.
It's not doing much, right? So forget even the standards. I think this way the students are going to get so involved that they will start to read, because in order to figure out what they want to learn, they have to read.
They have to read, whether it's on their computer or a book.
Whatever they have to read.
They're going to have to read. And or even if it's just like they're going to have to listen to it and follow along with it.
Patience. They're going to have to be patient. Like, it's not going to be as fast as it was. But when I think it's a long way away. The system can fix it that fast overnight. But that's where I envision is giving back some control and bringing the students to lead. And that way they might get off being angry, and because they're not being forced anymore.
Right. And I think that we are, if we were to go that route, ideally they feel more connected. It allows them to have more of a relationship with their peers, with the adults on campus. The school site I'm at has over 1,000 students. There's no way that I will ever know all the students on campus. And as a teacher, when you have 30-something students, it's really hard to make a connection to them, even if you are in elementary school. It's hard to get to each kid every day. And as you go up the grades in middle school and in high school, you have them at best an hour, maybe 45 minutes. There's no way. And there's so much to cover. So even if you're that teacher that is greeting them at the door, it's maybe a quick second of saying good morning or good afternoon and checking out, kind of getting a feel for their energy for that day. And I used to check my students, like, are they wearing the same clothes that they wore yesterday? And you kind of look for those little patterns, and you start knowing which students don't have breakfast at home, which students have some difficult life, perhaps. And you always want to check in a little bit with them. But there's also maybe that other kid that you missed. There was, I always feel terrible about this one situation. It was end of 8th grade. And again, it was a Title I school. And some teachers and I every year would kind of give out gift cards to some of our students who had lower socioeconomic means. So we'd give out the gift cards so that way they can get like a nice little outfit for themselves for the awards or for the dance, just a little something. And we kind of, the teachers and we all discussed, okay, you got this kid, I got this kid, okay. And we made sure that the money went to the parents, and it was never an issue. Like, it was, we saw the students actually wear the clothing and stuff. But this one year, this one little girl, she wore the same outfit to the awards ceremony and to the dance. And we were all, and I'm talking about like 10, 12 teachers were like, we never knew. We just never knew. Like, this child was an amazing student, so respectful, so kind, so helpful all the time. But she always came to school very clean, very well dressed. And we just didn't realize how her family was keeping it together. And it wasn't until then that it really just like, it was a real just shock. Like, who else are we missing? They're the obvious ones. But who else are we missing? And some kids are really good at hiding it. And going back to the smaller class, and it's not an excuse, but if, when you have 35 kids in a class, something's going to slip. And
It's management. It's crowd control, right?
Yeah.
It's not connection time. It's not connection time. It's crowd control. And so it's not easy. But thank you so much, because the way that you spoke, it really resonates with me, because you never pointed a finger at anyone. You really, really painted a beautiful picture of it's not their fault. It's not nobody's fault. We all have to work together, and we have to help each other, put our egos away, and look at the best for the teacher, look at the best for the student. So I love, love, love that energy. Thank you so much. And that's what it's all about.
Thank you. And I really do believe that. And if I can just say one last thing.
Please, yes.
Teachers really need to, we kind of spoke about it a little bit at the beginning, but teachers really just need to focus on what they need as well. We get beat up every day, whether it's by students or parents or admin. It's also considering what's best for our own mental and emotional well-being, and what are our needs. And I don't believe in, working till midnight grading and curriculum writing and all of that. You need your rest, and you need to have a life outside of school, because that just makes you a better teacher in the long run.
Absolutely.
So, and it is
and to wrap up all of what we were talking about, also the two words that I always go back to is balance and boundaries. Now, at home, parents have to have balance and boundaries for their kids, so they understand what that structure looks like. Yes, flexibility is important, but balance and boundaries, it's important. And then for teachers, they have to set their own balance and boundaries between work and home. If you don't do that, you will serve from an empty cup and you will burn out. And it's not it's not a life anyone should be living, right? No one's asking you to do that anyway. No, the system shouldn't be asking you to do that.
No,
So you have to protect yourself. So those my favorite words: alignment, balance, and boundaries.
absolutely.
3 words.
I agree with you.
Yes, thank you so much. You offered a lot of understanding for me what's happening since COVID, because I'm not in the classroom. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Kohila. Thank you for having me, and I enjoyed our conversation.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. That was an amazing conversation with Cathy. I really enjoyed her energy and what she had to share about what is happening in the classroom. And it was a nice addition to our podcast because it offered us a perspective from the administrator side. She was a teacher, now she's an administrator, and we can see how administrators are also struggling to help teachers because there's a big shift in the way that our children are behaving. Our children's behavior has changed since the COVID. We need to really dig deep into this conversation. I'm going to be bringing further conversations around what exactly has happened because of the masking and what exactly has happened to our kids who are supposed to be enjoying and loving and loving learning and enjoying their life. Why are they mad? That's my biggest question. Why are our young kids mad? What is happening to them? And we really need to look into it because as parents, we have the duty to see why our children are mad and why are they frustrated. And as she was saying in the classroom, the social emotional part of it is not met because teachers have too many students. They don't have the time. They have the mandate to deliver curriculum. It's not enough time and it's not enough manpower because she said there's a shortage to deliver all of this. So as parents, we have to ask questions. We have to help our kids because they rely on us speaking up. So I recommend as parents, you must see the shift in your child and see how you can help them at home. And we talked about some stuff that you can do at home, which she was explaining is to have conversation. I always say have meaningful conversation. Look at them and see what has changed for them. How are they feeling about school? How is school going for them is so important question. Even if they don't want to talk to you, even they're shutting you out, you must still talk to them because that shows that you care. If you don't ask them, if you don't talk to them, they think you do not care. So this is what you can do at the home level and at the school level as parents. You have to look at, is the school serving your child's education? If there is lots of problem that's happening and they're not able to focus, they're not able to function, they're not able to concentrate in that environment, then we have to do something about it. So that's why I think the world needs to change. The school system has to change so that it becomes student-centric and student-led. These classrooms can exist, and these classrooms will help students get back into the classroom with full engagement and interest in what they want to learn. Because right now they're not interested. That's why they are checking themselves out of the classroom and they're bored. So what can we do to inspire our students? That's a question that I want to get deeper and deeper and find the answer. And I hope we can help fix the system so we can help all of our children. Thank you, and I'll see you in another episode.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Our purpose for this episode was to spark a reevaluation of the current education system. For more episodes offering practical and comprehensive strategies to enhance learning, please visit www.learningsuccessacademy.com. It is crucial to ensure that children have access to the holistic neurogrowth learning approach, enabling them to break free from the constraints of an outdated educational framework. This is your opportunity to gain insight and break away from a flawed system, setting your children on a path to lifelong success that truly nurtures their thirst for knowledge. That's all for now. We look forward to having you join us for the next episode.